This is Michael Popok with the Legal AF Hot Take. Oh, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is at it again and is in hot water again. What else is new? First, he claimed that Joe Biden was a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump because, oh, poor Mr. Snowflake didn't like the Biden administration's social media policy. I'll talk about that in a minute. Now he's come forward with a mailer sent out to his potential donors that calls the Jan 6 defendants, the ones who attacked the Capitol, battled with police, led to death and destruction at the cradle of our democracy. He's calling them Jan 6 activists sitting in D.C. jail cell, stripped of their constitutional liberties. He said in further that he's asking for money to help call out the illiberal actions of our very own government. In fact, he went on to say, this is the reality that every American citizen faces. This is Bobby Kennedy Jr. front-facing the American people. From Ed Snowden to Julian Assange of WikiLeaks to the J6 activists sitting in a Washington, D.C. jail cell, stripped of their constitutional liberties. Then, when he got called out on that by NBC and by the news, he said, oh, that was a printer error. Right, that was a typo. Jan 6 activists whose constitutional liberties have been stripped. Where is that on my keyboard? I'm sorry, that big button that says that, and I accidentally hit it. It's a printing error. Somebody in the printer put in that language. This is what they told NBC News, Stephanie Spear. It was inserted by a new marketing contractor and slipped through the normal approval process. Right, in a one-paragraph fundraising email, you might miss where you call the Jan 6th criminal defendants, many of which caused death and destruction. You might have missed that you called them activists whose constitutional liberties are stripped. Can I talk for a minute, as I have in the past, about the Jan 6th defendants? Most of them bonded out. Most of them were out on bond, subject to their having their trial. Most of the trials have happened already. I mean, a lot of the trials have happened. We've had 700 trials, bench, plea deals, and jury trials. And the few times the Department of Justice has had to actually go to trial, I think they're 30-0, right? In front of judges and juries. There's been one acquittal on one count related to people that have decided to take their case to trial. Most of the Jan 6 defendants have pled guilty and have already been sentenced. Many of them have already served their terms. There is, however, a very small subset of the most violent indicted defendant that never got out on bond for very good reason. One of them, at least two of them, for example, who are still sitting in the jail awaiting their trial because they've chosen to have a trial, are accused of death and destruction leading to the death of police officers. Only the most violent defendants were held without bond. The ones that picked up torches, battering rams, bike racks, police batons and shields, and tried to maim, disable, and overwhelm and overcome the police and others on the ground, and with video evidence to prove it. In their own words, on their own social media, their own GoPro video or the video at the Capitol. These were the ones that battled it out in brutal, barbarian, medieval fashion, like you were watching a long-lost episode of the Game of Thrones at the West Portico, where it was hand-to-hand combat between these violent criminal insurrectionists and the overmatched Metro and Capitol Police. That group that came in either with their own homemade weapons, real manufactured or purchased weapons, or picked up weapons there on the fly and caused bodily injury or mass destruction, they're the ones that didn't get bonded out. That's who Bobby Kennedy Jr. is ultimately defending in his email out to raise money. There's no other way to put it. It shows a fundamental misunderstanding or willful blindness by Bobby Kennedy Jr. and his team about the Jan 6th investigations, prosecutions, plea deals, convictions, and sentencing. And who exactly is the Jan 6th people that are left in the D.C. jail? They're no better than Marjorie Taylor Greene or Paul Gosar or Donald Trump at a rally singing along with the Jan 6 choir, which is a choir comprised of violent, indicted criminal defendants. I mean, I don't think the Charlie Manson, family didn't have a choir that people, downloaded on Spotify back in the day. I mean, the fact that look how a line in order in a disgusting way that Bobby Kennedy Jr., sullying the name of his family, is trying to peel off Trump voters and Biden voters at the same time to get what? Let's be honest, Bobby. Bobby, come to camera one. You're not going to win the presidency. All you're going to do is what Ralph Nader did when he siphoned off enough votes from Al Gore that there became a President G.W. Bush. And we know what happened with that failed administration. Or what Ross Perot did in getting Clinton elected, let's be frank, is he's going to siphon off enough votes that in an election that's going to be decided by 1 or 2 votes, Kennedy getting 3, 5, 6, 7%, right? Even if he gets it equally from Trump and Biden, could be outcome determinative. So he's just going to be a spoiler. For what? His own ego? He's 70 years old. His time has passed. His anti-COVID Neanderthal approach has passed. Ever try to break a bad habit and felt like you're climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops? Yeah, we've been there too. But here's a breath of fresh air. Fume. It's not about giving up. It's about switching up. Fume takes your bad habit and simply makes it better, healthier, and a whole lot more enjoyable. Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. The first time I tried Fume, it was way more flavorful than I thought, and it feels very fresh. The look and feel of a Fume is very sleek. It's well weighted, perfectly balanced, and extremely fun to fidget with. Plus, Fume's just released a magnetic stand for your Fume, so there's no more losing it around the house. And it's built with fidgeting in mind. You can spin your Fume around on it. Start the year off right with the good habit by going to tryfume.com/legalaf and getting the Journey Pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when they use my code LEGALAF to help make starting the good habit that much easier. Start the good habit at tryfume.com/legalaf to save 10% off the Journey Pack today. There's a reason Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s entire family, and I mean entirety of his family, from his brother-in-law, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to his cousins, like Maria Shriver, to his sisters and brothers, have all renounced Bobby Kennedy Jr. Sure, he's married to a cool wife, and that matters, but not here. Look her up. She used to be a star on Curb Your Enthusiasm. But that doesn't make him cool. It just makes him more dangerous. That people even continue to talk about him. And look, this is you're supposed to evaluate. You're supposed to evaluate a presidential candidate based on how he runs his campaign, because that's his tryout for the presidency. And what have we seen so far? Ridiculous Super Bowl ad where he used his uncle John F. Kennedy's grainy 1960s ad, Kennedy, 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 to try to act like he was a Kennedy too. Paid for by, apparently, an organization that led by a woman that he eventually brought on as his vice presidential candidate. In other words, she bought her way into being vice president by buying the Super Bowl ad. And then he doesn't like, because he's a snowflake, he doesn't like Joe Biden's and the Biden administration's social media policy, where they participate in the public square, in the marketplace of ideas. He wants the government to abdicate and not be in the marketplace and let cuckoos like Bobby Kennedy Jr. tell the world not to take vaccine for a deadly pandemic, and not have the government push back and have on social media the balanced argument that this is disinformation, that it's killing people, right? So he wants them out of social media. That's why he thinks, and that's why he said that Donald Trump is less of a threat to democracy. With all of his dictatorship inklings and leanings, he's worshiping at the altar of all these other dictators. Trump is more pro-democracy than Joe Biden. Well, even the United States Supreme Court doesn't believe that, Bobby Kennedy Jr., because they're about to support the Biden administration's role in participating in the marketplace of ideas and allowing them to interact with social media, just like you're allowed to say things like this in your mailer. So look at all the unforced errors and stepping into the bucket by Bobby Kennedy Jr., which reflects that he's not ready for prime time to be president of the United States, right? Basically celebrating Donald Trump and to try to get his voters. And then here, again, trying to get Trump voters, saying that the Jan 6th criminal violently indicted or violent criminally indicted defendants are activists whose constitutional liberties have been stripped from them. In what way? In what way is due process under the United States Constitution or the 14th Amendment or the 5th Amendment or the 6th Amendment been violated, Bobby Kennedy Jr.? Why do you think they're sitting there? Because they're out picking daisies and handing them out, in some sort of protest movement on the day of Jan 6th? No, people died. There's video proof. The Department of Justice has brought the receipts. This is why the overwhelming number of Jan 6 defendants have pled guilty and have now been sentenced. Many of them are out, or the really bad ones are going to be in for a long, long time. But this is what we're watching, this self-immolation of Bobby Kennedy Jr. He's dangerous. I mean, I hate to say it. He has the right to run for office, sure. But can we, Bobby Kennedy Jr., can you take your ego aside here? This is not your time. This is not your time to step into the fray between, the battle between good and evil, the battle between black and white for the soul of America. Now is not the time, Bobby Kennedy Jr. And all you're showing is your lack of maturity, your lack of seriousness. To paraphrase one of my favorite characters on Succession, you're not a serious person. You're just not. And you shouldn't be running for office. And then to blame the printer for the typo, right? Like the printer decided, the marketing firm decided to put in Jan 6 activists, comparing them to Snowden and Julian Assange and all of these other people. We'll continue to follow all things that sit at the intersection of law and politics, including this one, which sits right on the corner of law and politics, as Bobby Kennedy Jr. shows he's not ready for public office and shouldn't be running with this kind of reporting. We do it in one place on the MeidasTouch network on Legal AF. And you can join our show on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and you'll know why we call it Legal AF. And then on hot takes just like this one at the intersection of law and politics. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up. Interact with the content. Thumbs up, leave a comment. I'll talk back. Why? Because it helps with the ratings. It keeps us on the air. It keeps the content coming to you. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.